quite a pleasure to be here tonight. This is certainly not work in any sense of the word. This is fun, even though we all may be sick of Zoom calls. Before I introduce Sally Lou, wanted to just tell anybody on the call that the Council of Lafayette Women is an umbrella organization under the Alumni Association. And our overarching goal is to connect alumni to the college. So we do this through programming, through a conference every 2 years, and through regional events in the Philadelphia and North Jersey, New York area. The conference in 2020 was unfortunately canceled, but we're working on a virtual conference for the spring of 2021. We're looking at the silver lining. The silver lining is, while we all can't do the kiss, kiss, hug, hug in person, we will be able to reach out to a much wider audience of people, not only women, but men as well. And it'll be free, so, and people can, access some great sessions, and Sally Lou will be one of our speakers. So on that note, let me introduce to you tonight's speaker. Sally Lou Oaks Loveman, class of '84. Well, it's like I said, it's an honor, and there's a laundry list of things you can say about Sally Lou, and I'm not going to say them, because if you don't know who she is by now, then shame on you. You're bad. Not my bad, you're bad. She wrote a book, by the way. She kind of was working for this woman, I don't know if you've heard of her, named Oprah. And she worked for Oprah for 35 years. And Sally Lou wrote this book, and it's called Speak, Love Your Story, Your Audience is Waiting. And the one thing that I've gleaned from reading this book, and I've read it 3 times now, and I go back and read my favorite parts over and over again, is something that Sally Lou's niece Cameron said yesterday during her talk for the Dyer Center. And what Cameron said was, we need to bring authenticity and consistency to what we bring to the table, no matter what our work is. And Sally Lou's book wouldn't be successful and wouldn't ring true unless it was authentic and consistent. And that is the thing that I love about Sally Lou. I don't know if you've all heard of the term WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. No hidden agendas. She is who she is. I love her to death. As soon as I was named chair of the 2016 Council of Lafayette Women Conference, the actual conference, before I became chair of CLW, the first thing I did was call Rachel Nelson Moeller, and I said, we have to get Sally Lou Loveman as our speaker. I can't think of a better person. And I really didn't know her that well then. And my instincts were right. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the shoulder here and say, hey, good job, Ellen. You got the best and the brightest. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to a remarkable woman who is authentic, true, and just as lovable as her name is, Sally Lou Loveman. Thank you.
That's like a lot. My oxytocin is rising. I'm feeling extremely happy, extremely warm and fuzzy. I think that's what happens when we gather like this. We all want to be standing right behind where Chris's background is. We all want to be on that quad in Easton. I miss it so much. And I just can't, story is what I'm talking about tonight. And we all have a Lafayette story, and we've all gathered here. We share that in common. And I think that is what this warm and fuzzy feeling I'm feeling right now is all about. And seeing so many faces who are family members, obviously, as well as friends and people that I've come to know, like Ellen, who we were on campus together, didn't know each other, and now we do. And you're a dear friend to me, and I thank you so much for your beautiful introduction and your friendship along the way. Thanks for being my publicist and so kind. So thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here with the Lafayette Council of Women. This is so exciting. Thanks for some of the men that have joined us, Jim Benjamin, Amos Hahn. I know there's maybe more. Oh, Leidy Smith, hello, you popped in the background. Hi, Lee. I'm just thrilled to be here. And so tonight, as we gather, we're gonna talk about unlocking our superpower, which is our purpose and our story. So I ask all of you, and for those I can't see, just, you know, we want to be as engaged as possible. How many of you are scared to speak in front of an audience? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. My child, Susan, no, you're not. Oh, come on, Marie, really? Benji's not, I know. A lot of you are and a lot of you aren't, and some of you are sort of like maybes, but it's the #1 fear people have. However, now with the pandemic, could be a contender for #1. So we don't know. It's 1 or 2, but I know that it's a fear that so many people have, and I understand fear. I have plenty of fears. In fact, I have so many fears, I can list them for you. Planes, trains, boats, bridges, elevators, open waterways, self-park parking lots, getting lost while driving, and COVID. But for some reason, I am not scared of the one thing that most people are scared of. It's like God gave me a pass on the #1 thing and then gave me all the other things. And I've been searching and wondering why me? Why is it that I am not scared of this one thing? And I've unlocked the reason. And the reason is purpose. Purpose. That's all it is. I am connected to my purpose. And when you are connected to your purpose, you don't have fear because you are so embedded in your purpose and you know who you are that you have no fear. So I just want to read you a really quick paragraph to remind everybody that I am not special. I am just like everybody else. Ellen said I'm authentic. I once had a producer who hired me at an event tell me, you know what I like about you, Sally Lou? You're not slick. And that is true. So you don't have to be slick to be a speaker. You just have to have your purpose. So I'm going to remind you with this paragraph. What are you scared of when it comes to speaking? Going blank, sweating, losing your place, sounding stupid, saying the wrong thing, being judged? These are all real things to be scared of. And guess what? I've done all of them. My next book could be titled Stupid Shit Sally Lou Loveman Says. And you know what? I still speak with zero fear, proving that anyone can do this, anyone. So I discovered my purpose when I was a young girl by accepting 2 invitations, separate invitations from my parents. The first one came from my dad, and many of you on this call know my dad, or knew my dad, I should say. He was a physician, and one weekend he asked me to go with him to the hospital and go on rounds with him. My sisters, I think, don't believe that this happened because they're like, did that happen? I think it happened. At least I remember it happening. But what I do remember from that moment is walking down the hallways with my dad, and everyone was like, Dr. Oaks, Dr. Oaks. And I felt like I was traveling with a rock star, and I really liked it. I felt like I was connected to something bigger than myself, and I wanted something big. He said hello to people. He asked them how they were doing. He asked them, how their families were. Did they need help with anything? And I realized that he was making people feel special, like feel seen, feel heard, like they mattered. Something that I would learn later was an attraction for me to work for Oprah. And so I really loved that feeling. And then the second invitation came from my mother, who, when I was 14 years old, as many of you know, invited me to the taping of the Mike Douglas show. I didn't want to go. I didn't ask to go. She didn't want to go. Somehow she got tickets. We went. And all I can say is I'm so glad that I accepted her invitation and said yes, because as I sat in that studio audience, I still have the ticket. April 12th, 1976. This was literally my ticket to my career with Oprah. I spotted a girl on the set with the clipboard, or a woman, I should say. I always say girl on the set. I should say woman. It was 1976. Like I said, the ticket says it. And so right there, she was a woman. So right there, I was like, yes, my eyes were locked on her. She was wearing a headset, which made her cool. She was carrying a clipboard, which made her official. And I knew in that moment, whatever it was she was doing, I was going to do it too. There it was, purpose, right? So I combined both invitations and made it work for me. And they changed the trajectory of my life because they led me to a career at the Oprah Winfrey Show with Oprah Winfrey, who is the author of, as you all know, Live Your Best Life. Now, I knew I was not doctor material. That was for my sister, Susan, even though she's a PA, but I was not doctor material. I was not brave enough. I am not smart enough, but I was committed to making people's lives better. And so when I was in the blue hallway, which was the hallway that connected the green rooms to the studio. So it was like the engine to the mothership. It was the epicenter. It was where everything big and good happened. And when I was in that blue hallway, I always felt that feeling I felt when I was in the hospital hallway. And it felt like that something big was about to happen. And it was, trust me. And every time I stood on that Oprah stage, which I did not work for her for 35 years, but that's okay. More like 20, but that's okay, Ellen. It's okay. Hyperbole. I love hyperbole. I love extra. When I stood on that stage to perform the audience warm-up, I was never scared. And it's crazy, I know, but it was because I was in my purpose. I was working in television, which at the time for me was my purpose. I was also connecting with an audience and building that relationship. And making people happy. I mean, people were very happy when they were at the Oprah Winfrey Show. And so when you're having a conversation with your friends, you don't even think that you're going to be speaking in front of them. And so that just wiped out my fear. And some days, like studio days, I was speaking in front of 650 people a day. And then on stadium days, it was 15,000, and it didn't blink because fear has no access when you're in your purpose. I want you to write that down, because if you're ever scared of anything, like for me, when I fly on a plane, one day I'll get back on a plane. We all will. I always like to write. I actually was hired to speak on a plane, which was awesome. I didn't even know we were taking off. Normally, I'm in the fetal position. But when you're in your purpose, fear has no access. So that is really where that Oprah stage is where I built my speaking career, because I had no fear. I'm going to read to you a quote that will touch your heart. It comes from Chadwick Boseman when he made his commencement address to the Howard University class of 2018. It was hard to watch because he left this earth too soon, and he was a man of purpose, that is for sure. But this is what he said to the class of 2018. He said, "You would rather find purpose than a job or a career. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It's the reason you're on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the thing you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose." And that's capital P, okay? Purpose. So I ask you, what is your purpose? I know a lot of you might say, I don't know. And that's okay. It's okay to not know your purpose. It's also okay to know your purpose. But you don't have to have a big earth-shattering answer. It doesn't have to be, solve world peace. That's too big. Your purpose could just simply be live a healthy life, or live an honest life, or live a brave life. Or it could be real specific. Some of you who are younger on the call could have a very specific purpose, like I want to start a tech company by age 40. And that's cool. We love that. Whatever your purpose is, speak about it, because that's your story. Your purpose is your story, and your story is your superpower. The reason why it's your superpower is because of what Chadwick Boseman said. It's why you were put on this planet. It is why you are here. So when you are armed with your purpose and your story, there isn't a stage that can shake you. You'll shake the stage, but the stage won't shake you. And I'm talking a TED stage, I'm talking an Instagram live stage, a TikTok stage, your dinner table, any stage, your boss's office, a Zoom call. Bring your story and your purpose to your platform and watch fear just disappear. When I first started writing my book, Speak, which I launched just before the pandemic because I have impeccable timing. I was writing to gain perspective, where to place myself now once I had finished my career that had brought me so much purpose. And guess what happened? I found more purpose. I found that I reclaimed who I am and who I want to be through the power of writing. And it was okay that it wasn't as big as it was, because it was mine and it made me feel like I was in my purpose. So that's okay. Our careers, our relationships, our achievements, our wins, our losses, our mistakes, they're all part of our story. And writing your story, that opens you up and unlocks so much of your story, which leads to your purpose, and it leads to power. And you know what that power is, Carly Loveman? What is that power? The power is you. That's your power. When you unlock what your talent is, what your purpose is, what your reason is, what Chadwick Boseman said, why you were here to be put on this earth. So I believe that our story is our superpower, because when we share our stories with each other, with our families, with our work teams, we become more connected. We build that foundation for connection, which leads to empathy, which leads to leadership. It also leads to efficiency. You know, when you know each other's stories, whether you live together, work together, are partners, you become more efficient. You're a more efficient team because you can finish each other's sentences. You can expect to know what each other wants or needs. It's efficiency. Story makes us stronger, like superheroes. Two of my superheroes wrote books in the last few years. I have successfully read one, and I have successfully listened on Audible the other. And both of them just changed me. One is Becoming by Michelle Obama. The other is Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. And both of their books, their stories, landed so deeply in my heart. It just made me so proud that I wrote my own. And so I always say to everybody, if you want to find your purpose, write your story. And it doesn't have to be shared, it doesn't have to be published, it doesn't even have to go outside of your own keeping in your computer. But when you write it, you begin to understand yourself in such a bigger way. And you know, we don't in this world have control over much. I'm pretty sure we don't have control over anything. But story is something that we control. It is ours to own. It is the one thing that we have been blessed with that is ours. It's ownership. And the cool part is that if you don't like the chapter you're on, you have the power to change the narrative. We are in charge of how our story will grow, and we're in charge of how it will end. There are so many ways that my narrative could have changed. I just want to read, because of this audience, and I always say know your audience, I want to read a little bit longer of a page of how my narrative took me to Chicago and how Lafayette College played a role. So I write on page 55, when it was time for me to go to college, I attended Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania, because I couldn't escape it. Every time I visited another campus where television was offered as a major, I left saying, it's not Lafayette. Turns out a total of 9 family members attended Lafayette. So anyone in my family who didn't is basically an outsider. Being an outsider in my family is more like being outstanding because the outsiders went to Duke, Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Columbia, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, but we still like them. My connection to Lafayette and the joy that the school has brought me and my family became more important than the majors that were offered. Lafayette did not have its film and media studies major in 1980, and it does now. Lafayette is where my family convenes. Even our outstanding outsiders love Lafayette College. Some people have vacation homes. We have Lafayette College. I was still committed to working in television, so I made Lafayette College work for me. When I was a junior, I took a journalism semester at American University in Washington, D.C., and I worked for a stringer reporter service on Capitol Hill. I wanted so badly to go to London for the semester, but my dad told me it was too far away and he would miss me too much. So I instead went to Washington, D.C. That summer, I interned at NBC News for an evening magazine show called NBC Monitor, and I learned about an internship in Chicago. The producer I worked for, Ray Farkas, told me I should apply. I would have never learned about this internship had I gone to London. Growing up in Philadelphia, I practically never left my backyard, and I went to college an hour from home. I didn't even consider working in a city outside the East Coast. Truthfully, I wasn't even sure that I knew where Chicago was. Geography is not my strong suit. It turns out that my husband was on that London semester, and we would have met there had I gone. Right, Lighty, who was also there. But the universe decided that the timing wasn't right. So after my semester in summer in Washington, I returned to Lafayette College for my senior year. And while I was gone, this shows how old I am, an art center had been built, the Williams Art Center. Show business had finally landed on my campus. Auditions were announced for the first musical to ever be produced, titled, there's a theme, Chicago. I quit the field hockey team and I made my way to the audition stage. I belted out all that jazz in my fishnet stockings with absolutely no training whatsoever. I'll skip that part. Okay, it refers to something else. Okay, sadly, I was not cast in Chicago, but Chicago was not going away so easily. So I applied for the internship in a city called Chicago. I got it, proving that Chicago was going to be part of my story one way or another, as long as I could figure out where the hell it was. The audition moment, that audition moment was all I needed to know that I wanted to be on a stage, maybe not singing and dancing, but using my talent in some way. When I was cut from Chicago, I decided to take an improv class, one of the bravest things I've ever done. It was in that improv class and it was that improv class that would pay off for a role I had no idea I would play in Chicago, the city, not the musical. So I just thought I would read that little part to you because, you know, Lafayette runs deep. It's been with me since I was born. And so tonight to share my story with all of you that you've gathered here is really, truly an honor. The other honor that I had was having that front row seat to the most powerful stories that were told on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I watched brave people like you and me come onto the stage and tell their stories about tough topics like debt and divorce and addiction and adultery. And then I watched the audience leave, sometimes with cars. Those were the good shows. But when they left with the hard shows, they were bummed that they didn't get something, but they got something even bigger, which was a more compassionate heart. And I left with one too. And our stories, you know, they're not alike. Our stories are all different. My story is different than your story, but if a piece of my story reminds you of a piece of your story, that's when the superpower starts happening. That's when connection begins. Like I write a lot about my grandfather in my book, and my grandfather, like your grandfather might not have driven a Lincoln Continental, or his cocktail might not have been a VO on the rocks, or Canadian Club, sorry, on the rocks, but your grandfather drove something, right? And maybe he drank something. Maybe he didn't drink. Mine did. But those are the stories that remind you of your own stories, of your own grandfather, right? We all hopefully had one. When you see your story land on someone's heart, that's the moment that it becomes a superpower. Have you all seen that happen, where you tell a story and you have no idea that someone in the room, or the person, one person, is going to say, oh my gosh, I understand now. I get what you're saying because I have had the same thing happen to me, but different. It's such a beautiful moment. It is truly what we do best as humans. We all have a story, and some of us tell our stories really well. Some of us need a little help. Some of us don't tell our stories at all, but I think all of us can agree that stories are important. For me, I was a super shy child. My nursery school, Mrs. Thompson, teacher, I should say, Mrs. Thompson told my mother I'd never make a friend because I was so shy, which was true, but really mean. And her label bothered me. I didn't want that label to determine who I would become in the future. Now, I don't know why I know this, because I was 4 in nursery school. I think you all were 4 too. I guess my mom told me, because I wasn't there for that meeting. But anyway, what happened for me, it didn't happen overnight, obviously. I didn't just become this chatty Cathy. But when I look back on it now, I really see purpose as the reason why I've become this chatty Cathy, because I owned a piece of something that no one could take away from me, and that was my love for television. Here I was, 14 years old, and I was like, I want to do that. And when you can own something that is just yours and no one can take it away from you, that's ownership. That's like purpose. That makes everyone feel just a little bit more sturdy. Just like owning a house or owning a title or owning a dog, whatever it is that you love, the simple act of owning allows us to feel less fear. And that's all about purpose. So how do we unlock and own our purpose? It's a big, lofty goal, right? It's a lot. People talk about purpose and people roll their eyes. I talk about purpose to my kids. They're like, oh no, please don't talk about purpose, please. But here are some important questions to ask yourself. Like this: what is the moment that everything became clear for you? It's that moment that all of a sudden you went, oh, I get it. Like for me, it's my clipboard girl moment. For you, it might have happened when you were a kid. It might have happened to you yesterday. And it could happen again and again. There aren't just one moment. I can't say that. There are many moments. But for me, the clipboard moment for me was a big one. It was the start of something. And then these big questions like, what comes to you so naturally that it doesn't feel like work? Like Ellen's going to be making cocktails on October 8th. That is her natural gift. So it doesn't feel like work. And I don't know if you said this earlier, or maybe it was when we were talking earlier before everyone joined. You said, this doesn't feel like work. It's not. I'm not working. Is anyone else working? No, this is enjoyment. This is fun. So whatever feels natural to you, that doesn't feel like work, that's your purpose. And tune into when people compliment you on things or when they ask you to help you with things. That's your purpose. Like Lee, you are so good. My dear friend Lee Smith, who was my little sister at Kappa Kappa Gamma, and she's such a beautiful artist who just loves putting things together, and she is now a beautiful floral designer. And that's a talent, and I would like help with that, please. And then the last question is, what does your personality lend itself to? I really love that question, because we all have a personality. And if you're an extrovert, maybe speaking isn't something you enjoy, but that's okay. I just said that the wrong way. I meant to say introvert. I don't even know how to say introvert because I'm not one. If you're an introvert, maybe speaking isn't the thing that you want to do and feel comfortable, and that's okay. You have other gifts and skills. If you are an extrovert, we're not easily muted. So when you know your purpose, life seems to fall into place more easily, and you feel more like yourself. So I want to talk about this personality thing. I'm a big fan of the Oprah Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation experience. I'm a dedicated meditator. And one of the experiences was called Energy Attraction, Manifesting Your Best Life. And Oprah spoke about our souls. And she quoted Gary Zukav, who is the author of The Seat of the Soul. And he says, when the personality comes to serve the energy of the soul, that is authentic power. Then Oprah went on to say, when we find a way to use our personality to serve our soul, to serve what our soul, I should say, actually came here to do, that is when the connection to ourselves is unstoppable. And that's when fireworks exploded in my head. I kept rewinding, writing it down, listening. Oh my God, I'm using my personality to serve my soul. Oh, that is my purpose. When you use your personality to serve what your soul, your purpose, is here to do, you have no fear. It was like, oh, I get it. So this gave me power, and I want to share that power with everyone. And it doesn't mean, especially you, and it doesn't mean, if your personality, like I said, is more of an introvert, you have other gifts. But figure out what your personality lends itself to and what your soul was put here to do. And that's where you take fear away. And that you can even use as you build your speaking skills if you want to. There are a lot of people here tonight who I've seen speak. My sisters, both of them. My friend Jim Benjamin. I mean, everyone who are, Ellen, excellent speakers. You don't need help. But you know what? We can always use a little tip or two, right? So ask yourself, how does your personality serve your soul? How are you unlocking your purpose? What is your story? How would you start your story? For me, it's accept invitations from your mother or your father. And are you using your story to help others? That's the key. When we are in service to others, there is no fear because you are in your purpose and you're serving others. And if you're unable to speak without fear, I offered 5 tips today on my Instagram at Live Love Speaks. If you want to follow me, I could use the followers. And here they are, 5 tips. 1, write them down or remember them, or we'll email them to you, or follow me. Get to know your audience before you speak. It was so great talking to everybody, and I can't wait to get to Q&A. Get to know your audience, because then they're your friends and you're never scared to speak in front of your friends, and then your audience is rooting for you. 2, use content that you gather when you're speaking to the audience before you speak in your talk, so that you remind people that you're listening, that you care, that they matter, and you're pretty cool, that you can, think quick on your feet. Number 3, include your story, a piece of it, a small piece of it that has to do with the topic, of course. Number 4, rely on your heart, not your script. And number 5, own your mistakes, because you're going to make them. It's not the mistakes that people remember, your audience remembers, it's what you do with them. And I've done plenty, like I said. Stupid shit, Sally Lou Loveman says. So using our story makes us better speakers. And here are 5 reminders. I've got a lot of lists coming. 5 reminders that when you use your story, you are a better speaker. When you are well-versed in your story and you use it in your career and on stages, you become more relatable. So that makes for a better speaker. You want to be relatable. When you use your story, you're in service of others. That's when fear goes away. Story releases oxytocin. That's the word I used from the beginning. When we hear story, our oxytocin, our feel-good hormone, rises, and an audience leans in. They want to hear more. And then when you hear a story, you lean in. Now you're the audience member, which is a key ingredient to becoming a good speaker. The better the audience, the better the speaker. You have to be a good audience member in order to be a good speaker. Number 4, the job of a speaker is for the audience to want to take you home. And by doing that, you tell them a story and everyone's going to want to take you home. And when you know your story inside and out and you use it in a way that works in your speech or your talk or just a conversation, you don't need a script. It's in your heart. It's etched in your soul, in your heart. You don't need a script. So I invite you to bring your story to your role in your career and in your personal life. Let people know who you are. Invite people into your heart by sharing what makes you you. Spend time connecting with yourself. We are the most neglected audience. And in order to connect with a bigger audience, you have to be connected with yourself. So spend time. Oh, my girls are together. Hi, Maren. Spend time. They could actually, what would be really funny is they could actually like lip sync what I'm saying because they've heard it so much. Fear has no access when you're in your purpose. I don't know what that says, but thanks, Carly. Let's talk about connecting to your most important audience, okay? Find time for meditation, for therapy, for mindfulness, for exercise, for quiet, for prayer, for writing. All of these tools help you understand more who you are. And when you're connected to yourself and you unlock that superpower of you, you will connect with a bigger, larger audience. Because your audience is waiting, right? They're everywhere. If you think you don't have an audience, let me remind you that your audience is everywhere. They're on this Zoom call. They're on your social media platforms. They're, like I said earlier, at your dinner table. They're everywhere. They're at a keynote that you're going to deliver one day. They're at the event for your loved ones, celebration. If you give a toast, your audience is everywhere. They're at the grocery store. They're your Uber driver. Engage with your audience so that you practice your skills. Talk to people. Tell them your story. You don't have to tell them the whole story, just a piece. And remember, it doesn't matter the size of your audience. It matters that an audience has showed up to speak to you and reward them with your story. We are living in uncertain times right now, right? It's hard. We're doing these Zoom calls. We're working online. We're not seeing each other face to face. It is hard. And I want everyone on this Zoom call to give themselves a round of applause or a pat on the back for the very fact that you're doing it as well as you can. Because it is hard and it's not fun. Being in front of people is way more fun. Although I kind of am now an introvert and I'm kind of liking it. So it's weird. All I can say is you're being brave. Being brave, doing your jobs in new ways. And being brave is essential to being a great speaker. So a lot of you know this, but some of you don't. I love being brave, even though I'm scared of everything. I don't like being brave in the things I'm scared of. I like being brave in the areas where I can kind of feel somewhat comfortable. So it's whatever. Listen, I still think it's brave. I did stand-up comedy last year, twice. I stood on the stage, did a tight five, 2 times in front of an audience, and I, for the first time in my life, was terrified. I didn't do it to become a stand-up comic. I'm not stupid. I did it to be brave so that I could remind myself to go back and do the things I already do well better. That's what stand-up comedy was for me. So I ask you all to leverage this time. It's a bit of a time of a pause. Leverage this time to build some skills so that when you do go back into the world where you are face-to-face and you can't, block your video or mute yourself, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird, you guys. Like, we won't be able to do that, right? So I'm asking you to build your skills. Like, cooking clearly is what Ellen's doing, and whatever skill you want to build, but speaking is a skill you can do now. You can build it. In fact, you can take my Sally Lou Speak Challenge, which the link is in the chat, and you get a 20% discount code, because when you go back to work and all of a sudden your coworkers or your boss is like, what happened? What happened to Marie? She's really, pumped up those speaking skills. Get noticed. It's a wonderful thing to have as a career asset. So the last thing I'm going to say about being brave is this. 50 years of women at Lafayette College. OMG, right? Woohoo! It was so brave of the Board of Trustees back in 1969 to decide to include women on campus. And it was so brave of the women who enrolled in 1970. Some of you might be on. I don't know. I know, Susan, you were 78. So And I saw Susie Tischler. Oh, you enrolled in 74, right? Okay. So I don't know if somebody was there, but in those first 4 years, 70 to 74. So you're a pioneer, Susan. And of course, she looks really good, of course. But that's brave. And that is a story. That's a story I want to know more about. It's a powerful story. A little more than half of our students today at Lafayette are women. We are among the top 20 engineering colleges or universities in the country in the percentage of women, which is 40%, studying engineering. And nearly half our faculty are women. I want to hear these stories. They're part of my story. They're part of your story. They're our story. And we all share a piece of that superpower, even the men. So unlock your purpose, speak your story. Your audience is waiting. Thank you so much, women of Lafayette, Council of Lafayette Women. Thanks for the applause. Thank you, Ellen. I can't wait to take your questions and chat. And please make sure that on October 8th, you arrive for cocktails with Ellen Weiler. Thanks, everybody.
So Sally Lou, thank you so much. I'm going to do, I think it was suggestion number 5, and it's own up to my mistakes, because if you had worked for Oprah as long as I said you did, you'd be like 120 years old.
Yeah,
so
that's okay.
To the audience, I apologize. Sally Lou is really only 29 years old. She had her children at a very young age, and
Right.
that's why she looks so phenomenal.
Right.
Does anybody, if they want, they can put their questions for Sally Lou in the chat room, and I can sort of feed them to her. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Questions?
I have a question. I'll start off to give you. After you wrote the book, was there anything that, I mean, I know this doesn't have to do with speaking per se, but you were speaking your story in the book. Was there anything you wanted to add to it or take away from it? Or do you feel like whatever it is that maybe did or didn't happen in the book will be in your next book?
Yeah, well, I think a mentor of mine who's a woman author, best-selling New York Times woman author, told me that I didn't have to tell it all. And that was really good for 2 things. One, I didn't have to tell it all, because if I did, that, you know, I was telling my story, but I didn't have to tell it all. Mm-hmm. And also that I didn't have to tell it all, meaning you could have a second book. So that was really helpful to me. And in fact, the process of me writing my book, I did write a whole book that I've never published. And that book was for me. I did tell it all. And that really helped me, but I couldn't publish that book. So I reframed and redid. I had a lot of feedback from my family, which I really invited and kind of put them through hell, because they were like, Mom, I'm busy, or sisters, I'm busy. But they were very, very generous with their time. My husband, my sisters, my mom, my daughters. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely things I took out, a lot of things. I think it's a great question, because I think the answer is you don't have to tell it all. And some of the stories are really meant for people who deserve to hear them, have earned the right to hear them. And I think that when I say use your story when you speak, if you're telling your whole story, your audience will hate you. So if you want your audience to love you, you have to know the amount to tell, just the amount, and just the right, the right amount and the right mood. You have to know your audience. You really need to know your audience. It's really important before you speak to know what will work and what won't work.
So Janice Egan from the college said, what is next for you, Sally Lou? We all love you.
Oh, wow. I'm just trying to get healthy. I had COVID, and I really am on like a kick to say it's okay to be small right now. A lot of people are like, how's your book? How's it going? Well, I started my book launch on the Today Show. It was a pretty big deal. Like, that was a big deal. And I had these great events, and then it all stopped. And yeah, it was hard, but And I'm, it's fall, it's September. It's the last 3 years I've been in New York working on television pilots or shows. I don't miss it. I really have to say, COVID changed me. I'm really happy doing my work, doing my podcast, doing my my curriculum that I'm launching. I did it in June. I did a very soft launch for it, and it was free. Anyone could join, and it was like a test run. And I made so many beautiful relationships and friendships, and I found that I really am a coach. I'm really a good coach. My sisters are coaches. My dad was a coach. I'd like to think about getting my coaching license, just so that I can have a credential. The book was about getting a credential. I wrote my book because I love storytelling, but I wanted to have a credential to say, book me, and as a speaker. And I finally got my speaker fee. I got a really, really big, fat, juicy speaker fee. And then COVID happened. So I hope I can reclaim that when we open up again, and be able to really monetize what I've done, because I do it for free, because I'm doing it for free right now. No, I'm kidding. I would do it for free. I'm not a very good businesswoman, but I love it because it's my purpose.
Your sister, I'm going to try to do these in order. Your sister, Cindy, wants to tell us about your writing process. And I would add to that, not only your process, but and I don't know what, Cindy, you might want to weigh in on what you meant by that, but I also want to know, did you write the book in order, or was it piecemeal and then you cobbled it together at the end?
Yeah. Okay. Cindy, what were you going to say?
Well, so I just kind of, being a great speaker doesn't mean you're a great writer. And being a storyteller doesn't mean that you have the discipline to sit down and write. So I just think it would be interesting to hear about how, one, you decided to put pen to paper, how you put pen to paper, how long it took you, and was the writing process as enjoyable as when you orally tell your story, because you're so adept at that?
Well, there's a lot to say here. And thank you for asking, Miss Linville, who read my book, every version of it. Trust me. Sorry, I had a dry throat. I will tell you right now, I did not know how to write a book proposal. It scared me. I wasn't brave. I didn't know how to do it. And it kept me from writing my book. So I did everything backwards. I wrote my book, and I never wrote a book proposal. Now, I did not go the traditional publishing route. I self-published, which I didn't love in the end, because I like a team. My god sister, who is my graphic artist for my business, art directed my book, so I felt like she was my team, and it was great. But I wrote it, I did the process backwards. Also, I never wrote from beginning to end. I wrote in my phone, in my computer, on scraps of paper, on napkins, and I then started cobbling them all together, and I put it together like a puzzle. I printed a lot. All the young kids would hate me. I printed way too much. I will say the first time I printed my full manuscript and held it in my hands, that was pretty powerful. But I put it all together. I loved puzzles as a kid. I felt like seating the Oprah audience was like a puzzle, and I put it together like a puzzle. So that's how I wrote. I didn't know I was a writer. One of the reasons why I stopped being a television producer was because, well, I hated when guests canceled, but I also hated writing. So I didn't know I could write. Carly's nodding her head. I didn't know I could write. But I write like I speak, so it's kind of like super casual. I definitely did not have an outline or a beginning, middle, or an end. It all evolved as time went on. And I just put everything on my dining room table, and I just started piecing it together. And then once I got it all together, then I copy and paste and copy and paste. You know, my dad was writing a book at the end of his life by hand, and he's horrible handwriting. And he would put it all on the beach tape, on the dining room table at my sister Cindy's beach house. And he would talk all about it. And it didn't make sense to him because he had already begun his Alzheimer's battle. But what it did for him is it gave him purpose. And he was writing, which gave him a fulfilling, time. And so I would just encourage anybody to, if you want to write something, don't feel like you have to have an outline or feel like you know what you're going to write. Just do it for the process. And it will, if it's meant to be, it's going to find you. It's going to evolve, and it's going to make sense eventually.
Marie Garofalo says, I love your podcast. Do you have more interviews lined up in the future? What has been your favorite part of launching it?
Oh my gosh. You know what I love? Thanks, Marie. Marie's mom was a sorority sister of mine, and then Marie came to the Oprah show, and we became, friends. Obviously, she's class of 2010, a lot younger than me.
It's still one of the best moments of my entire life.
Which show did you come to? I forgot.
The post-Oscar show.
Oh, right, in LA, right.
2011.
Right, at the Kodak Theater.
That's right.
So, okay. Honestly, I'm having a senior moment.
The podcast.
She wants to know if you have any interviews lined up in the future and what's been your favorite part.
Okay, thank you. So I've been wanting to do a podcast for like 5 years, but everyone's got a podcast and blah, 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 blah. I don't have a sponsor. It's not really a business, like, good thing. I'm not getting money from it. I'm paying to do it. And I can't do it by myself because I'm not technically inclined, but I'm good at it. And I love my conversation. And I did my first season. 18 is my favorite number because it means life in Hebrew. I have 18 chapters in my book, 18 lessons. And I was determined to do 18 for the season 1. And I was really doing it like once a week during that period of time. It was too much. It was too hard because I'm doing all my podcast notes, and it was really a lot of work. But I book everybody, I produce it. So anyway, season 2 was happening. I launched it in August, so I'm trying to do it once a month. And I'm really focused on a lot of conversations with friends of mine about things like race, gendered racism. Today we launched one about solutions. I'm going to be talking about grace and soul, and I have a lot booked coming up, and it's all topics. Like it's called Speaking of Blank, like speaking of soul, speaking of courage, whatever it is that matters to me, because if it matters to me, it's going to matter to many people. So the conversation, I would ask you all to listen to the one that I launched yesterday, or that's live yesterday, with my friend who's an activist who is a Black woman who has lost 86 family and friends to COVID. And in that moment, it took I was like, what? Because I know of 2 people who have passed from COVID. And that was just like a case study right there of how it's impacting the Black community so gravely. And today I was watching the Tamron Hall show, which my daughter produced, which was an incredible. Carly, tell us the title of the show.
I had to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It was called Women and Race. So the racial divide between women.
Yes. And so much of what her show was about today was was about the conversation I had with my 2 girlfriends who are sisters and twins when we talked about race, and then today about solutions. And you'll hear a conversation with my friend Jill about gendered racism. And it's just an education for me. So I hope it's an education for those listening. It's really, the podcast is really about moving your heart. And again, the space is loaded, but we all, Cammie said this on her talk, it's like you, and I say it all the time, you bring you. Everybody, Marie can only bring Marie to her story. No one else can. So if you're going to tune in, you're tuning in for the reason that you like to hear whatever I have to say. You know, I'm not famous. I'm not any more special than anybody else. And, but I am a good listener, and I'm a good speaker, and I have a big, giant heart that wants to make the world a better place. So that's what that podcast is about. But thanks for listening.
Great. Well, you do have a giant heart. We have this is from an iPhone, so I don't know who it is. What advice do you have for parents helping their Lafayette students find their purpose?
Ooh, good one. First of all, hi, Dave Schwager. I just saw you. Hello. How are you? Nice to see you. It truly is like anything else. It's for an adult, for a kid. I think I just talked to my senior student son who's at Northwestern, who knew his purpose at age 4 to be a film director, and now he's questioning that purpose, and it's scaring him to death. He's freaking out, and I'm like, don't worry. If I would say all the things I've already said, you know, what do you like doing? What do people compliment you on? What is it that you feel comes so naturally to you that you don't have to worry about it? Your kitty. I forget your cat's name, Ellen, but I know she's new. That is what you need to focus on. What is it that comes so naturally to you that it doesn't feel like work? That's your purpose. And again, it shouldn't scare people, because these things develop. And what was your purpose? You know, television is no longer my purpose, but it was for so long. And now making lives better was also my purpose. It still is. And I'm just doing it on a different stage and a different platform. You know, one of the things that I thought was really an interesting story for me is I was still working at Harpo. The show was over. I was working for OWN. We were doing things, but I got an opportunity to MC the World Culinary, you'd love it, the World Culinary Show at the restaurant show, and with all these famous chefs. And so it was my job to keep the audience engaged and questions, and I introed the guests and all of that. And at the end of my 4 days, the audience was like lining up, and I was like, what are they lining up for? Like, I'm looking over my shoulder, but they were lining up to talk to me. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, I thought my talent only worked at the Oprah show. Oh no, my talent works because it's mine. And they wanted to talk to me. They wanted to know my story. They wanted to have questions. And so I thought, you know, there's a lot I do that's terrible, like I'm not good at, meaning there are a lot of things I'm not good at. But the one thing that I am good at is connecting with an audience. And so that audience wanted to talk to me. And so that's when I go, oh, I'm in my purpose. So, you know, it just, you can move it to other areas of your life where it continues to work. It's got to feel right to you. It needs to fall naturally into place, that you're not pushing. You got to push yourself and stretch yourself and be brave. But when it feels like it just comes naturally to you, that I would say is what you tell your students. So
Great.
Ellen, wait, Ellen's on? Susan, Ellen Simmons, you're Ellie? I think Ellie's here. Hi, Ellie. Sorry, I'm seeing names. Not
yeah, she's on. She's on.
Hi, Ellie.
Wait, I'm on.
Okay, who else has questions?
Any other questions for Sally Lou?
I have
Either.
a quick one.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you, like for a young kid, if you start out in a job and you're not really feeling it, like that you're in your purpose, that one of that you sort of learn what your purpose is by what you enjoy doing and the you know, the good kudos that come from it, and that I think that you don't necessarily have to start in your purpose, but you can find it within the company that you're in. Well, and then all, you know what I mean?
You're telling your story because you started as a physician's assistant, and then you went back and you started working for a law firm to do the research, because you had the medical background, to help defend physicians. So you're still in your purpose, which is medicine, but you're doing it in a different way. And that's why as life changes, as your own personal life changes, your circumstances change, or like the world changes where all of a sudden certain parts of your career don't work anymore, to reinvent yourself, like I said, like to go on a different stage. That's what I did. I just started to go on a different stage. And that's what you did. You did it beautifully. I would also say that the best thing is really when you're in the worst job and you hate it and you know you never want to do it again. I worked for a bank one summer and I was bad. I was like, finances will never happen for me. So Benji's laughing. So Cindy. So honestly, every bank branch I went to got robbed before I got there. So all I cared about was going under the desk. I would literally practice all day, like going under the desk should robbers storm the bank. Anyway, but I want to say that especially for young kids, doing a job that you hate is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Because then you're like, I am never doing this again. And it pushes you to the path that you want to do. I mean, my sister Cindy was on Wall Street in the 80s when there weren't a lot of women, and she was doing huge deals and, making a shit ton of money and making, big decisions. And when she decided to step away and have children, she continues to do those things in her life and make big decisions and make a big impact in the financial world through her fundraising career. It is a career that she has done for not just our school and our athletic arm of the school, but for a school that her children went to in Princeton. So, she's just using that as her avenue. Don't even get me started on Jim Benjamin and all the cool work he's doing with his foundation called CORE. And, Leidy Smith, who had a freaking business of putting phones in college rooms, and then the damn cell phone was invented and he had to reinvent himself. So yeah, I mean, we're all just trying to keep relevant, right? I know I am. I'm just trying. It's hard. And never ever, for the older people, for the pioneers who went to college where you have to scroll all the way down to get our class number, don't ever think that just because you are old that your dreams have gone away. That your dreams, oh, you had your dreams. I have more dreams now than I did when I was 20. So they just keep, and you don't have to do them all. You just have to do some of them.
Sally Lou, you are a delight. And I selfishly am so glad to be on this call because I get to see you. And that's my takeaway. And that's my purpose. Just to hear you and delight in your presence. And
your purpose is eating oysters. Don't try to sugarcoat it and say it's me.
So I just want to thank everybody on behalf of the Council of Lafayette Women for joining us. Sally Lou will be one of our featured speakers at what we're now in planning for virtual conference this spring. I think we're working on dates right now. We're avoiding all major holidays and all that. And I really hope that you can join us, and it will be different. And I think even though Sally, you said you had to be a little smaller because of the COVID and what you went through, I think we all do miss hugging each other and being together. And I'm hoping we get back to that real soon.
Me too. I just want to say in closing also, thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Council of Lafayette Women. Thank you for showing up tonight. You know, if there isn't an audience, the speaker can't speak. So thank you for showing up. You know how I love an audience. But, you know, there's something very special about our school. Amos Hahn said to me that he sent my book. There were 4 legs of Lafayette people. He is a grad. He sent my book, which I wrote, through a postal carrier who went to or whose child went to Lafayette, to a Lafayette grad in Korea.
Yeah, Daejeon, South Korea. Daejeon's about 100 miles south
Right.
of Seoul.
So I'm international, and thanks to Amos, and 4 Lafayette legs. And you know what? There's no one that loves the school more than my dad, but Amos is a contender. So thank you very much. And the last thing I want to say is it runs deep, man. The leopard love, it runs deep. And look at this. Thanks, Amos. It runs deep. And because it's the Council of Lafayette Women, don't ever underestimate a Lafayette College woman. Don't even try.
Hear, hear. Thank you,
Okay.
Sally Lou. We love
Thanks,
you.
everybody. I miss you. I want to see you soon. I'll be coming east soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for joining.
Love to have you come on a
Next
book
topic.
tour, and love to have you come up to our way in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Okay, Dave
Speak.
Schwinger.
I'll reach out to you.
Whatever you say, I'm yours. Thank
Sounds
you
good.
so much.
Take care.
And anyone who wants to take my speak challenge, it's quick, it's easy, and it's fun. I promise. All right. Have fun, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Love you, sister.
I don't want to leave. Thank you, Cindy. Love you. Bye, Suze. Bye, Lee.
Bye,
Bye,
Suze.
Lighty.
Bye, Ellen.
I'm just seeing everybody leave. This is so
Bye,
sad.
Renee.
Bye. Bye, Cindy.
Bye, Bench. Love you. Bye, Marie.